to Cookfulness. I'm back in the Footsteps Festival. So glad to be back in the street kitchen. I hope you've all had a wonderful festive time. Seems an awful long time ago now. So I'm back doing more dishes. This time you've asked for anti-inflammatory, low FODMAP recipes, which are really important anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. So in the next 3, maybe 4 sessions, I'm going to do all of those dishes. I'm starting today with sort of breakfasty, brunchy dishes, because they can be quite hard, otherwise you end up with the same thing over and over again. But there's some really simple things you can do, which I hope you're going to enjoy. Now, those of you who don't know me will know that there's a few things I need to do before I start, and I hope that you'll follow and do the same things as well. So, first thing is breathe. Because no matter how you're feeling, whatever, you can get yourself really tense, as I am doing right now, ready to cook. So, and just close my eyes a little, in through the nose, out through the mouth a few times, just to calm myself down. And if you do this just a few times before you cook, you'll be amazed how good you feel. And then if you're still feeling a little bit awkward, a little bit, I'm not sure about this, just have a visualization. I see, you'll know if you've seen me before, I see a kitchen table, and around it are 4 places, myself, my wife, my 2 daughters, and I'm sat at one of them. And we're all here, and we're all eating my food. We're all laughing, enjoying ourselves, and everyone's proud of what I've done because I've created something, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be in the middle of that table, a burnt mess. It really doesn't matter. It's the fact that you tried. So keep that visualization rather than 3 people and an empty chair, which is what it used to be for me for a very long time. So I am in that chair. You need to be in that chair. So keep that in your head. We'll go a long way. Next, music. You've got to have music playing. Your Cookfulness playlist, get it going, keep adding to it. What have I got playing today? Well, the Brits were on. There was lots of music, really my scene. But I did hear recently a really brilliant song at the Emmys and also at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Awards, which is by The Cure, which I've not heard in ages. So I've got The Cure Greatest Hits going. I was never really a big fan, but I've actually really quite enjoyed it. So music's great. I'm enjoying it. It's giving me something positive. So it's playing. You probably can't hear it, but I can. Last thing, my dog might make a guest appearance. He sometimes trots through and back, but hey, we're live. So what are we going to start with? We're going to start with a granola, and it's a sort of baked granola to start with because you need to get that nice sort of crunchy texture. So to start with, before you start, you need to turn your oven on, and turn your oven on to 160 degrees fan. So it's on a reasonably low heat, but that's what you need to make sure you've got it. So what are we going to make? Here we go. So low FODMAP, gluten-free, wheat-free. Now, I'm celiac anyway, so I don't have gluten or wheat. So it's easy for me. But actually, if you're struggling with anti-inflammatory, with your stomach, etc., then gluten-free is brilliant. So I've got gluten-free oats here, and I'm going to do, I'm doing cups. You'll see that I've got cups here, which is sort of slightly American in there. But actually, what they do is that when you're using cups, if I put a cup of oats in, and then I put a cup of marshmallows in, they weigh completely different. So it's really the measurement that you're after. So if you don't have cups, just find something, a bowl, could be a small bowl, could be like that. And as long as you do the same measures of oats is a cup, then you'll get the measurements right for the rest of them. So in there, 2 cups of oats. Next, walnuts. Now, walnuts are brilliant for omega-3, anti-inflammatory. They're really, really good. You'll see these coming up quite a lot. So in the bag, I've actually just given them a crush, because you don't want massive chunks of walnuts. So just give them a crush. If you're struggling with it, just get someone to give it a bash for you. And we're going to do half a cup of the walnuts. So half a cup. If there's any big bits, just break them up with your hands. They're easy to break. And then chuck them in. Next, mixed seeds. Now I've got here a bag of seed mix, which in it has pumpkin, sunflower, and golden linseed. So you can buy them already mixed up, but if you want to get them separately, it's absolutely fine. So I'm going to do half a cup of mixed seeds. Now, I'm also going to try and stop putting them all over the floor, which would be quite useful. Now, seeds are great for things like zinc, magnesium, and iron. But also what I'm going to add is, I've got a super seed mix, which you can buy in pretty much every supermarket now. And in here, there's chia seeds, golden linseed, etc. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that because I want that chia seed kick. So that's, in we go. It's looking very healthy, isn't it? We need to do something about this, but let's get there in a minute. So, cinnamon. Cinnamon's brilliant in your body because, as well as tasting great, it actually helps your body to absorb sugar. So I'm going to do 1.5 teaspoons. Now I'm actually using a tablespoon measure because I know that'll be about right, of cinnamon. Then I've got, in this bowl, coconut oil. So I bought it, I've got a big sort of jar of coconut oil, keeps for ages, and I've just warmed it up so it goes to liquid. And there's basically 2 tablespoons of coconut oil going in. Okay. Maple syrup, you've got to have maple syrup. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. In we go. Then some vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon. In that goes. And then finally, just to give it a little bit of sharpness, a little bit of salt. Not too much, just a little bit. It doesn't need much. And that is pretty much it. Now just give it a nice mix up because you want to get that oil and the maple syrup coating everything. Now obviously if you want to make loads of this, just scale it all up. As long as you've got the sort of proportions right. And don't worry, the recipes will all be there on the website. And you've basically got that. Now what you do, put it onto a baking tray with some sort of parchment paper on the bottom. Just layer it all into one layer. You don't need to squash it because remember it's a granola, we're not making bars. And then in the oven for 15 minutes. Take it out, let it cool, let it go cold, and then you've got a nice, break it up into nice crunchy chunky bits. You've got a granola that will go with some yogurt, that will go with anything, with some almond milk, whatever you like. It's delicious, give it a try. Right, dish number 2 I'm going to make, it sounds a bit weird, a quinoa breakfast bake. I promise you, it's fantastic. By the way, what do you think? New year, new background, so Cookfulness logos, and create space for the happy stuff. Yeah. Anyway, right, so we're going to make a quinoa breakfast bake. First thing, oven is on 190 degrees C fan. So get that going because it does take quite a while to cook. And then I've got a sort of oven dish here that I've just greased with a little bit of coconut oil. You don't really want to be putting too much butter in there, but yeah, coconut oil works perfectly well. So I'm going to carry on with my sort of cups thing, same as last time, because I'm looking at sort of size rather than weight. So obviously it's quinoa bake, so we need some quinoa. So I've got this actually, which I found, white, red and black quinoa all in one. So you'll notice it's not cooked because it's actually sort of, it's a bit like a sort of a baked rice pudding, I guess, but you'll see what I mean when we go. So 1.5 cups of uncooked quinoa, and you just sort of sprinkle it in, 1.5. Obviously this will puff up a bit, and then you just sort of give it a shake to cover the bottom. Oh, pretty. So 1.5 cups of quinoa. And now, next, I have strawberries, raspberries and blueberries. Now these are fresh, you could use frozen. It would work perfectly well. Just you wouldn't get the same sort of feel, but it still work brilliantly. Now what I'm looking for is effectively 3 cups worth of a mix of these. So I'll start with strawberries. I'm just going to chop them into reasonable size chunks because you want to have a little bit of bite in them. And then and obviously they are going to cook down. So I'm probably going to have 1.5 cups of the strawberries. Let's go a bit over the top because obviously there's a lot of air in there. So 1 cup. Satisfying sound it makes when it drops. So another 1/2 cup. Okay, strawberries in, 1 more I think, and then we're done. Okay, and then here I've got 1/2 cup of blueberries. I did have more, but my children seem to have eaten them, which is not a bad thing, so I'm not going to argue. And then basically 1 cup full of raspberries. It's brilliant for getting the fruit in you. So here we go. I mean, that just looks beautiful already. Look at that, it's just so pretty. And that helps if you're eating with your eyes, it makes you happy. It makes me happy, so I hope it makes you happy. Now, next we need some wet ingredients. So I have, first up, 3 eggs. I hope it can stay on the dish and not fall off. 3 eggs. 1. I don't know about you, but I've suddenly found that I have trouble breaking eggs open. My thumbs don't seem to work very well. But, you know, as long as you recognise it, you can get some help if you need it. So, 3 eggs. Little whisk. Combine those. And then into there, I've got almond milk. Whoop, there goes my stick, sorry. 3 cups of almond milk. Now you could use coconut milk, you could use well, whatever you like really, as long as it's not a dairy. Give that a good mix in. Then 1/4 cup of maple syrup. Give you that little bit of sweetness. So I'm using a 1/2 cup measure here, so 1/4 cup of maple syrup goes in. Then I've got ground ginger. So 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. In it goes. And then 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And there you go. And you just give these all a mix up. Just make sure you get all the powders nicely mixed as well as best you can. I tell you, the smell of ginger and cinnamon is amazing. And it's not cooked yet. Now it just smells so nice. Just give it a good, keep going, and you'll think it's not going to go in, and then it will. It just eventually just mixes up nicely. You don't, obviously, you'll still see bits of it, but the idea is that it's not all sat on the top. So then, all you do is pour the mix over the top. Don't give it a stir, leave it as it is because you want the quinoa to sit at the bottom and gradually soak up all of the milk, etc. Now that, I can't lift it up because it's a bit wet. That now goes into a 190 oven for 1 hour. What you want is for all the liquid to sort of have been absorbed into the quinoa and all of the fruit, etc. And you should end up with this incredible bake. So I'm going to put that in the oven and I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. Right, we're off with our final dish of the breakfast brunchies, and these are going to be gluten-free oat waffles. Can't beat them. So what do we need? Well, obviously it's gluten-free oats, so you need gluten-free oats. Now what I've done, if you've seen me before, you'll know that take gluten-free porridge oats and give them a whiz up in a blender or a blitzer, and you get oat flour, and that's really what you need for this. So don't worry if you haven't got a blitzer or a blender, just use your gluten-free porridge oats. It'll work fine, they'll just be a little bit chunky, it's fine. So I have 1 whole cup of gluten-free oat flour. So the dry ingredients first. Next is baking powder, and I want 1.5 teaspoons, because you want these to sort of be nice and fluffy. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Then our trusty old friend, cinnamon. Tablespoon of cinnamon. Remember, it's so good for you, cinnamon, it's brilliant stuff. And then we've got some chia seeds. Chia, whatever you call them, I don't know, chia. And then a tablespoon of those as well. They give a lovely texture as well as being very good for you. Tablespoon, in they go. Give it a nice little whiz around. And then just a squirt of salt, nothing too drastic, just enough to give you a little bit of flavour. So that's the dry. Next, we start with 1 egg. In it goes. Off. This one doesn't seem to. There we go. 1 egg. Just give that a little cook. Then, half a cup of almond milk. Again, you could use coconut milk if you wanted to. Half a cup. In she goes. And then, trusty friend, maple syrup. Where's my tablespoon? God, there he is. Yeah. Tablespoon of maple syrup. She goes. And then last but by not least, I've got a tablespoon here of coconut oil that I've melted. And it just goes straight in. And that is really your batter. Now all you need to do is give it a good mix. It'll start to change colour before your very eyes and turn into this amazing dark cinnamony chia seed batter. Now it's quite a thick batter, as you can see, but the baking powder will help lift it. Now this can sit in your fridge for, well, a few days at least, like this. Quite happy until you need to make it. And then once you've obviously made them, you can freeze the pancakes as well. So all you need to do with these is basically a little, that size, blob onto frying pan or a griddle, medium-low heat, and just watch them puff a little bit. Flip them over. Obviously, just make sure you've got a little bit of oil on the pan, and you end up. You can either do big ones, little ones, whatever you like. But they're really delicious. They're great for brunch or breakfast. As I say, once you've made them, they'll freeze, and you can get them out whenever you want. You can add fruit to them, do whatever you like with them. So I'm going to actually get some help doing the frying, because the moment I am flaring, I've also got a back problem, and one of my hips has decided doesn't want to play ball at the moment. So I'm struggling quite a lot. So I've done this. I'm going to ask my wife or one of my children if they will now fry these for me. And if, like me, or you haven't got anyone around to help you, just keep this as it is. And then when you are feeling a little better or you're feeling up to it, just make sure you're safe and have a go at it frying them. What you could do, if you fancy it, and I've never done it, but it might work, if you've got a sandwich toaster, and hopefully one that's got like a setting on it that can turn it quite down low, these would work. If you've got a waffle maker, they could go in there. So whatever you fancy, really, to make them nice and fluffy and fried. So I'm going to go and get these. I'm going to come back in a minute with all 3 dishes to show you what they look like. Fingers crossed they all look good. Right, so 3 dishes, all anti-inflammatory, low FODMAP, all breakfasty, brunchy. So firstly, some lovely granola. You see how much it makes? It makes a pile, just from what I did there, and it's delicious. These little waffly things, the waffly cake things. Look, you can see the shapes that we've done. Doesn't matter, it's just how they taste, and they taste fantastic. And last but by no means least, this is just fresh out of the oven, so I'm going to be careful with it. But hopefully you can see that. It's like a rice pudding baked quinoa and fruit. It's absolutely fantastic. And that, once it's cold, freeze it. You can freeze all of this if you want. Keep them and then portion them out. Keep them, and then when you're having a bad one, get them out of the freezer. Bob's your uncle. So, hope you've enjoyed that. I'm really looking forward to the questions coming afterwards because that's the best bit of it all. Thanks so much. Next time I'll be doing more dishes, probably a bit towards the middle of the day next time. Hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you again soon. Bye.